Dive into the pulse of Bills football with Turf to Tape, where veteran sideline reporter Sal Capaccio and film room guru Eric Turner deliver a one-of-a-kind podcast experience, combining Sal's unparalleled access to players and coaches with Eric's razor-sharp film breakdowns. The show bridges the gap between casual fans and hardcore enthusiasts. This is Turf to Tape.
This is Turf to Tape, presented by Thin Man Brewery. I'm your host, Eric Turner. As always, joined by Sal Capaccio of WGR. Sal, good afternoon.
Hey, buddy. Tough one last night. Late night. We got the radio show on Monday, the reaction show. It's pretty much an overreaction show. It's okay. It's what fans do, right?
It's okay.
Fans do.
Got to get it off your chest.
And had a very tough day for my Yankees yesterday. Then you had the night last night. But all is good because we just adopted Bernie. This is Bernie. Say hi to Bernie.
Oh, so
he
cute.
Is a Great Pyrenees mountain dog. And he is the newest member of the family. And so the weekend is still good, right? Now, here's honest to goodness what happened. Went to a memorabilia card show for TSC Buffalo, the big show too. TSC Buffalo that I've been promoting. Had no idea Buddy's Second Chance Rescue was going to be there. Mm-hmm. And went in there and there was Bernie. And we adopted Bernie.
Oh, he's cute. How old is Bernie?
5 months, and he's huge. And he's going to be like 110, 120 pounds.
Yeah, pure puppy, and he's going to grow very large. There's no doubt about it.
So you can't bring me down today, even though we're talking about a tough loss is the point.
And I'm sure, much like when you're on the radio, talking about the game, talking with fans, talking with other analysts, seeing everyone kind of doing their comb of the film and the all 22 coaches film.
Yeah.
I'm sure it kind of helps too. It's therapy in many ways, as we always say for the post-game show here at Cover One. But yes, the Bills finally lost a game. They're 4-1 now. They lost 23-22 the New England Patriots, division rival. It was a game that was built up, obviously, being a night game, primetime game, the whiteout, all of that. Kind of fill us in, just give us that context as per usual about what it felt like in that stadium, the good, the bad, the ugly. Give us some context on that game and how it unfolded.
Yeah, I mean, listen, Eric, it was a fantastic atmosphere and just the vibe, the whiteout, right? Good job, Bills Mafia. You knew the assignment, you followed instructions, and you showed up in full white gear for the most part. It was great. I took a couple of photos. I'll show you the stadium. I took a picture of the stadium with the fans. So here you go. This is what from the sidelines I took this. All the white.
Wow.
Pretty crazy, so right?
Cool. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. And then even looking over the other sideline, this is even better, maybe how you see it in full.
Wow.
Pretty cool, right? So that was really great. Great atmosphere. But you knew this was going to be a tough game going in. It's a division opponent. It's a Mike Vrabel coach team. Drake Maye. It's a good young quarterback. And the things that had kind of been building up to me, the things that have been building up just kind of showed up again. Mm-hmm. And this time against a better opponent who took advantage of those things. And they even became even more pronounced. We're talking about penalties. We're talking about turnovers. Those are things that the Bills have been kind of getting away with the last few weeks. And they just didn't get away with them. And look, 26 straight games of not losing the turnover battle is an NFL record. It just doesn't happen. Mm-hmm. You knew it was going to go the other way at some point. Well, unfortunately, it didn't go the other way against, the New York Jets team that you're dominating. It went the other way against the Patriots team that had some answers to make sure that they kept the game close and ultimately won.
Yeah, the penalties, a lot of them were, if you look at them technically, were penalties. I thought some of them were softer, on the softer side. I thought it was very lopsided in the first half. Sure. It felt that way. And then in the second half, the Patriots fans could probably say the same thing. I think it went back the other way as far as penalties called. In these type of games, I want to see them play. I'd want to see the ref as much as we did. But aside from that, the Bills had too many self-inflicted, mistakes. It was sloppy. The turnovers, they were consistently behind the chains because of, whether it's the turnovers or the penalties. And it just really felt like that first half was very unstable, as opposed to like last week when the offense kind of stalled. It was more like specifically in that second quarter. Well, this entire first half, it felt like that instability at offense, that inability to get back to their identity, which was their run game and James Cook. And I felt like, and we'll talk about it more on the offensive side, they got away from Cook in the run and pass game for that matter. And it really just it really took them some time to figure out how they wanted to attack the Patriots defense, which is a very good defense. And in that, by the time they did kind of figure out what was working for them, it was almost too late.
Yeah, that's right. And look, I know I got a lot of calls today, and people have been tweeting me complaining about the run game not being that effective. Now, granted, Josh Allen had a lot to do with the run game. The Bills did run for 4.1 yards a carry against a team that was averaging 3.5 against.
Yes.
Ran for a pretty good number, 80-something yards against a team that they allowed only 77 yards a game in the contest. Let me just take a look. What were the Bills' total rushing yardage numbers here? I got them. 118 total, 4.1 yards a carry. And again, Josh, 9 for 53, some on scrambles, but they count too. I didn't think the running game execution was that bad. What I think was missing, and this goes to your point of maybe getting away from giving them opportunity, James Cook's long run was 9 yards. I mean, every game we're talking about Cook breaking one, busting one off, right? 15, 20 yards, takes one to the house from 35, 40 yards. That was an element missing. And the Bills had to do what they do against teams. How many times, Eric, do we talk about make the other team grind, keep everything in front of you, go play to play, because eventually they'll make a mistake. Well, because the Bills had to play that way, they made too many mistakes. Eventually they made a mistake. And I want to point to one specific sequence, which is a great example of this. Okay. My colleague on the radio, Eric Wood, always says, when you make a couple little detailed mistakes, they compound and they can really result in a big mistake. So the Bills have a 2nd and 3 at the New England 9-yard line. Okay. 2nd and 3 at the 9-yard line. Dalton Kincaid gets to the 7 for 2 yards. They're looking at 3rd and 1 at the 9-yard. You are set up 3rd and 1 at the 7-yard line. But on the play, Khalil Shakir is called for pass interference. He hits the DB a little too early, and he's called for pass interference. It was a fine call. It was nothing wrong with the call. It was the correct call, I should say. That backs him up. Now it's 2nd and 13 at the 19. So instead of 3rd and 1 or 3rd and 2, you have 2nd and 13 at the 19. What happens in the next play? Joshua's interception. Those are little things. If you don't have that interference, and Khalil Shakir should know when to block him, right? I mean, maybe the timing is wrong.
The timing was off. Yeah.
You don't have the interception, right? But those are the little things that matter that add up to big things.
Yeah, James Cook, I have 15 carries for 49 yards. That's 3.3 a rush. Season low in touches, scrimmage yards, and yards per rush. I think part of it, getting behind the chains. I think part of it was the Patriots D-line took it to the Bills offensive line. Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Tonga, the nose tackle Tonga. Basically, anytime the Bills ran their go-to plays, their hits, the mid-zone runs, they put Tonga at the point of attack, and no one could move him. He is a strong nose tackle, and McGovern had issues with him. Torrance had issues with him. Milton Williams was blowing things up. I think the Patriots, they took it to the Bills' offensive line physically. They were attacking them. They were punching them in the mouth. And I think that really kind of threw the rhythm of the run game off a little bit. And what they did so well compared to a lot of other teams, we're talking the zone runs where you see James kind of aim outside and then cut it back up inside or cut it back for big yards. Those cutback lanes were not there in this game because of the guys up front, but also the second level linebackers. They weren't fast flowing over the top. They're like, you know what? We know you're going to eventually cut it back up inside. And when he did, he'd get 3 yards. He'd get 4 yards. They could live with that. As you said, they were not getting the 10+ yard runs that they normally get, whether they're running man, zone, or gap runs.
Yeah. And the Bills really are very, very tough to stop when they can have those explosives and medium. It doesn't have to be super long down the field, but because they put themselves in a much shorter yardage situation. And then you have Josh Allen's running component as well, which, by the way, Josh made some mistakes. He had a read option he should have given to Ty Johnson, and he kept it. Right. I mean, like, these are little things, little mistakes that add up. And because of that, he gets tackled behind the line of scrimmage. That compounds the problem right there. And I think that's when they had to settle for a field goal on that drive, if I remember correctly. So you're right. I think, overall, the Bills' run game did a better job than most teams do against the New England Patriots, but probably not up to their total standard. The Bills came into this game as the number 1 rush team in the league at 163 yards a game. And because they just could not find that rhythm and could not do what they wanted to do up front like they normally do, that really caused them not to be able to sustain drives. And then you start to force the issue. Then you have a penalty, it gets you behind the chains, and then it just starts adding up.
Yeah, and the offense as a whole started off slow. Obviously, turnovers, penalties had something to do with that. EPA per play by quarter, negative 1.07 in the first quarter, 0.04 in the second, 0.24 in the third, and then 0.43 in the fourth. So again, I think they obviously the turnovers and mistakes and all that happening early affects those numbers. And I do think they started to get on track with that. But like you said, I think that Josh Allen, I think he struggled. And yes, you talked about the tackle wrap play where he's reading that defensive end. Spencer Brown is pulling right to left on the screen, and he's reading that DN. And if that DN crashes, he's supposed to give it to Ty Johnson. One, that should be James Cook in the little red zone. In the red zone, that should be James Cook because that speed stresses defenses horizontally. That should not have been Ty Johnson. Secondly, Josh should have gave it to Johnson there. And Johnson may have scored, at the very least, probably picked up the first down, right? Because I think there's still an opportunity to get the first down there. But Ty Johnson probably would have walked in because that edge defender that they're reading, that conflict defender, crashed down, and I think Johnson would have got on the edge. But it wasn't just in the run game. I thought Josh struggled in this game. I think it starts with Brady too. I'm not taking responsibility away from Brady because it felt like they were trying to be aggressive at home in this game, more so than, again, leaning on their identity of the run game. And I think that really set the mindset for Josh. And there were times where there were those checkdowns underneath, and he didn't take it. He didn't handle pressure well. And we're not just talking blitzes. He was pressured 42.5% of the time. He didn't handle it well. He didn't have answers to go to when the pressure came and left several clean pockets on top of not being able to find guys open underneath when the Patriots dropped 8 into coverage in those high leverage third down situations.
Yeah, they actually, look, even Sean McDermott said in his post-game press conference, he thought they tried to get too cute at times. I'm assuming he means on offense more than defense. That's what you generally say about certain play calls. We saw the jet sweep to Dawson Knox results in a fumble. Little too cute. Now, look, if that works, oh my God, what a genius play. Never, right? That's what people say. But
hindsight thing,
even if it works, what's the best result there? 2 yards?
Yeah.
Right? I mean, so to me, jet sweep is not a bad call, but probably the wrong guy to give it to who doesn't handle handoffs very much, which is why you see the ball on the ground. So that's number one. Then you go to a flea flicker after that. And yeah, it worked actually. They did get a nice game, but you could see that they were trying to play some games with the Patriots. And I'm not going to say or criticize that. I think it's cool to try and open some things up once in a while. But I do think because of what you said right there is right, where now when you do have times where maybe you check it down, you're in this mindset of we're trying to push. We're trying to go downfield. Now, Josh's yards per attempt in this game was good. It was 8.1. That's a nice yards per attempt. They did throw the ball downfield. Mostly that was Dalton Kincaid, mid-level passes. There was a couple Keon Coleman, Josh Palmer. There were a couple in there. But it's so funny how many times, this is a great example, Eric, of how many times over the last few weeks have we heard people, we come on this show, people comment, they tweet us and say, oh my God, throw the ball downfield. Can't believe you're not throwing the ball downfield. And we say, take what is given to you. Be smart. This is why they do it. Maybe they didn't do that enough in this game. And maybe that was a part of the reason why Josh is trying to make something happen downfield, which is why he bails out of the pocket a little early because he's trying to extend the play to give his guys some time, which then takes us into, well, maybe they're not getting separation early enough.
Yeah, and that is something I watched this morning when I went back to the coach's film, and I do think there were some plays where there were separation. The Patriots, when they did play man coverage, they're very sticky. That's their MO. They're very good in man coverage, and they have the personnel to do it. And I thought that on top of with like how they were sending pressures, because they didn't blitz him a lot, and Josh didn't handle blitzes all that well in this game. When the Patriots blitzed him, they blitzed him 20% of the time, and that was 8 dropbacks. He was 4 for 7 for 33 yards, at 4.7 yards per attempt and 1 touchdown. So usually Josh creates explosives off that. He's able to make Carlton Davis miss on that corner blitz, get outside the pocket and make a big play. That didn't happen quite as often when the Patriots did pressure him. But when he was under pressure, 42.5% of the time, he was 9 for 13 for 106 yards and 1 interception. But I thought the Patriots, on top of sticky coverage, did a great job of disguising what blitzes or what pressures they were bringing. They did some cool things. Again, they would drop 8 into coverage, but play man coverage, not zone. They would send a corner blitz, drop a D end out, and it forced Josh to hold on to the ball a little longer than what we're used to. And so there were times where he was unsteady in the pocket. Maybe he saw some ghosts here and there and eventually had to leave the pocket when he really didn't need to. And I think that kind of plays into some of the separation stats too. But there were opportunities Josh left on the table. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, and look, it doesn't have to be that the entire offense needs to be scrapped or they have to have some overarching change in philosophy. Give the Patriots credit; they did some nice things. The other team, what is the old saying? The other team gets paid too. They're a well coached team. They have some talent on that side of the ball. They had a game plan coming into the game, and they forced the Bills into making some mistakes. The Bills were their own worst enemy. So after the game, in the locker room, I would tell you, Eric, that the number one prevailing thought from Bills fans and things said to me, penalties. Now, I brought up turnovers and penalties to several players. Basically, every player I talked to, my question was, hey, how tough is it to overcome that many penalties and turnovers when you guys are usually a team that, is on the other side of that?
Right.
And the answer, and I bring up the question because the answer was always, yeah, that's right. We can't turn the ball over. But everyone talked more about the penalties than they did about the turnovers, even though the turnovers are a big deal. It seemed to me like the Bills feel they lost this game because of discipline and penalties and that area of the game. And that's not saying they're making mad about the calls. They're saying that they lost this game because they committed too many penalties and that hurt them on offense.
And that's been a consistent message in the wins and now in a loss. I mean, when they won the game, you've heard the coaching staff say that, if we don't turn it over or if we win the turnover battle and margin, we usually win the game. And so the Bills are on the flip side of this. And I think that's a good thing in many ways, because one, it's obviously still early in the season and the Bills are still sitting pretty good position right now, record wise. But I also think that message needs to be consistent throughout the year. And we know the formula. They know the formula. Their opponents know the formula. They just have to do a better job of being disciplined, obviously not taking as many penalties and obviously not turning it over, especially if you're in the red zone, you're backed up. You got to hold on to the ball, Keon Coleman. You can't have those type of plays. Josh, when you're throwing it in the red zone, you got to make sure to throw it on time because you're a half a click late, and that allowed Marcus Jones to break on the ball across the middle for the interception.
Yeah, I mean, look, we have a comment in here, and we'll get to this because we appreciate the comments and people watching along. Let me just read this one. It was, hold on, go back up here. Give me 1 second. I found it. As we saw last night, I am Sabbath. I got you there, Colin. I got you. I am Sabbath. We saw last night, even in week 1, when the Bills' run game gets shut down, it's extremely hard for them to make things work. Okay. Here's what I want to say about that. That's true with any team in this league, though.
Yeah.
Right? That's not unique to the Buffalo Bills. Did you watch the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday? They couldn't run the ball. You know what happened? Yeah. They lost in the end because they couldn't run the ball. Right? Yes, you can always have teams and you can have oh my God, Josh Allen can pull a rabbit out of the hat and Patrick Mahomes or Jalen Hurts, whatever. That can happen here and there. But folks, let me just tell you, a defensive coordinator's dream is to make a team one-dimensional. That's what they aim for every single week. If you can shut down the other team's run game and say, you got to throw every play, then you can just pin your ears back. You can blitz. You can do different things. So that is not unique to the Buffalo Bills that when a run game gets shut down, that it's tough for them to make things work. That happens to every single team in the NFL.
And I'll add that, okay, the run game was slowed down, but did you see the play action game? The Bills ran play action 30% of the time, according to Pro Football Focus. Josh was 8 for 8 for 101 yards, 1 touchdown on that, in that game. And you saw a lot of those run plays that we've talked about on the show in the past get converted and shown as a run. And then they were able to get the ball down the field to one of their better man coverage beaters. If we're talking about, separation and creating separation, in Dalton Kincaid. And he's our tapped in player presented by Thin Man Brewery. Dalton Kincaid, to me, obviously one of the bright spots of the Bills offense. And I think this is a good sign for the Bills offense. If we're talking an identity, the Bills are a run game, run focused identity right now with James Cook. He won. There's a reason why he was the player of the month, on the offensive side of the ball. So trying to figure out an identity in the pass game is still being I do think that's still being figured out. And I think that's why this game was a good sign, because Dalton Kincaid should be that guy for the Bills offense.
Yeah, Dalton Kincaid had a fantastic game. The numbers are great, right? 108 yards, his first 100-yard receiving game of his NFL career. Maybe what I'm most encouraged by is the fact that he had 6 balls thrown his way. You know how many times he caught it? 6. And I'm not saying because of drops. I'm saying because of the chemistry with him and Josh. How many times last year Eric, did we talk about, and Josh even talk about, they just weren't on the same page.
Yeah.
That's not the case this year. Dalton and Josh are on the same page, and you see it a lot. And I thought that matchup was maybe one they should have gone back to a little bit more,
No doubt.
a little bit more often. But look, the Patriots made some adjustments as well, probably taking a little bit of that away. But Dalton Kincaid was the player last night that I think the Bills drafted him to be and want him to be. And he was a big part of the offense in the passing game. And of course, he's become a better blocker. You can keep him on the field in all situations as well. But that's why he's the tapped in player, because he was pretty tapped in last night with that 108-yard receiving performance.
I think Brady, if he's done one thing well, aside from the run game, if he's done one thing well, it's maximize this guy. 6.3 yards after the catch per reception for Dalton Kincaid right now. That's 17th overall among all receivers, all tight ends, and all running backs. He's got 2.63 yards per route run, which is 5th behind Amon-Ra St. Brown of the Detroit Lions. A 37.5% explosive reception percentage. That's 1st overall among all wide receivers, tight ends, and running backs. And he obviously is also efficient for this Bills offense. He makes some plays in high leverage moments for them. And I just think, like you said, they need to go back to that more when we're talking run action, when we're talking play action, because you saw some of the big plays by Kincaid in this game off of play action. And like I said, if their identity is a run game offense with James Cook and he's lighting it up and difficult to stop, why aren't you running play action more than they already are? Because when they do and they target Kincaid, good things happen for the Bills offense.
Yeah, we just saw a flea flicker right there, right? A little chicanery there. There's Kincaid. They wanted to go down the field a little bit more on that play, but Kincaid made, his himself available on that play. And I think 13 personnel has worked really well for the Bills this year because they can do so much with all three of those tight ends. And this isn't a game we're talking about how great Jackson Hawes was as a blocker. That happened last week. This is a game we're talking about how good Dalton Kincaid was as a pass catcher. But that's what 13 personnel does. You can bring out different tight ends and do different things with them. I think the concern from Bills fans, and might be rightfully so, is separation from the wide receiver group, because now it looks like you have your tight end room where you need it. You're wanting to do things with them. They need a little more separation from the wide receiver room, but very nice job by Dalton Kincaid. And like I said, I think the biggest thing for me is 6 catches, 6. And what do you have his stat? Let me see his targets to catches. I can look that up right now. But on the season, just so much better than last year.
6 targets, 6
and what for the season, though, I just want to see this real quick. So season, here we go. I don't have targets here, but he has it. He has 20 catches for 287 yards. And we can look that up. But I just think that it's such a night and day difference from last year and, what he's doing right now. And it just makes a big difference for the Bills.
20 for 24. So 24 targets, 20 receptions, 287 yards,
love it.
3 touchdowns. That reception percentage, which it's a little of a murky stat. I don't like using it often, but reception percentage of 83.3, which is a big difference, like you said, than last year in 2024 when that reception percentage was 61.7%. So it was a big difference there. And like I said, I think just the offense, it runs so much better when you start targeting him. So in the second half, and mainly bottom of third, top of the fourth quarter against the Patriots, they were obviously starting to zone in on Kincaid. And so what the Patriots started doing is they started bracketing him. And it opened up Khalil Shakir on the in-breaking route for that first down on 2nd and long. And so it opens up things for others. So I know, rightfully so, fans have some concerns about separation at the wide receiver position. But like I said, this is what they have. So how do you get those other guys one-on-ones and get them in space? You start targeting Dalton Kincaid, and like I said, especially off play action, and then you're going to get some one-on-ones because teams are going to start to focus on taking him away. He should be part of that, offensive identity in the passing game, and it'll make things easier for everyone else. And this is what fans need to understand too, Sal, right? You talked about the Eagles. Teams are still trying to figure out the ins and outs of what team they have and guys they have and offenses and defenses. And the teams aren't figured out. The teams are evolving and adapting still and trying to figure out their identity. And I think this is probably when it comes to the offense of the Bills or the team of the Bills, the offense and the passing game is still kind of working through some of their kinks.
Yeah, that's right. I have a saying every year, and now we're week 5. I say you never really truly know who your team is till at least after week 4, right? I mean that's because the first month of the season kind of throw it out the window when it comes to matchups and who beat whom and things like that. You never really know. A lot of praise for how the Patriots played, and rightfully so. They won the game. Look at the numbers in this. Really, this was a very even game. I mean, the total yards was very even. How about this? exactly 6.0 yards per play per team, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everything was very. Josh and Drake Maye had almost identical stats. One was 22 of 30, one was 22 of 31. You know what the difference was? The Bills had 2 more penalties. Now I know actually yet less yards, and they had 2 more turnovers. That's the difference. The 2 turnovers. That's the difference in this game, especially a red zone turnover. Think about the red zone turnover we just talked about. Khalil Shakir has the penalty, pushes them back. Josh has the interception. It's a 3-point game. Very least, you get out of there with a field goal. We're talking about a different result in this game.
No doubt. And again, not many bright things to say about the Bills offense in this game, but Dalton Kincaid was definitely one of them. I think it's a good sign for the Bills offense going forward, a good sign for this podcast. And they've been here since the start of this podcast. That's Thin Man Brewery, and they're bringing a fan favorite. Pils Mafia is getting a bold rebrand, and it's bringing back up introducing Mafia Light. Meet your new tailgate essential. Mafia Light hits different with just 3.5% ABV and only 80 calories per 12-ounce can. Drinks like water with notes of beer. Check it out at your local grocery stores and gas stations in Western New York. It is out now this summer and going in the fall. And hopefully a lot of you guys were drinking this prior to the game yesterday out at your tailgate. We appreciate Thin Man Brewery going ahead and sponsoring us for this year. And we appreciate Dalton Kincaid. I think they're the Bills are onto something, and Joe Brady's onto something with how they're using him this year in the Bills offense. So with that said, let's flip the script here. Let's go to defense. I want to get your thoughts on the defense. I think overall they looked pretty good. It was just some high leverage moments where some things kind of went haywire. But what were your thoughts on the defense, and specifically how they faced Drake Maye and that Patriots offense?
I mean, I thought the defense played a lot better than maybe a lot of people seem to think they did, because it seemed like they were getting pretty criticized today. I mean, the pass rush, they had 4 sacks and they had 8 pressures. They were getting to Drake Maye. You know what they didn't do? Get him down on the ground. And I give Drake Maye a lot of credit. That kid made a couple Houdini plays. He made plays like we're normally seeing Josh Allen. Again, give credit to the other team sometimes. You can't make every play. Sometimes they're going to make a play, but you want to see him get on the ground a little bit. I didn't think the defense played poorly. I thought there were a couple drives they could have, maybe finished a little bit better, and the Patriots scored a couple touchdowns there in the second half. But they also came up clutch, Eric. I mean, the Patriots had 2 drives start in the Bills' red zone that ended in field goals.
Right.
And when you think about that, that's clutch. They had 6 points in the first half, despite how poorly the offense played, despite the turnovers, the penalties. It was 6-3 at halftime. You had a chance to win this game at the end. I give the defense credit. Where I really am concerned about the defense, though, I think that's the big picture of the defense. Like overall, they did a good job against the run. They actually did a very good job on third down. The percentage was great, 33.3% on third down. That's all for the Patriots. Bills did a good job in those big picture items. The concern is just not enough from your corners on wide receivers, plays on balls. One Bills player in this game had 1 solo pass breakup, and it came from a defensive end, AJ Epinesa, on a tip ball. 0 pass breakups for the entire rest of the team, the entire secondary. Not enough people near the ball, near wide receivers, to make plays when the ball arrived.
I think Drake Maye had a great game. And again, some of the short fields and all of that. And Josh McDaniels, he always schemes up a pretty good game against a Sean McDermott defense. But Drake Maye was fantastic. He had some great throws. He had that layered throw over the linebackers on that crossing route to Henry. He had the cover 2 shot late in the game where he turns his whole body to the flats where there's a short option underneath. He turns his whole body to that guy, makes Trey White hold in his Tampa 2 look, hold just a little bit, and then he just throws it over the top of him into that cover 2 hole shot. He had some really good throws to Diggs outside of structure, from the boundary, outside of script. He put it all together in this game. And now, it wasn't like super high passing volume numbers, but there were some quality plays from him where he kept plays alive inside and outside the pocket and created explosives and extended drives with his legs and his arm. Yeah,
and once again, the Bills hurt by a mobile quarterback, this time not necessarily running. He took off a couple times. This was outside the pocket, outside structure. I found it really interesting. Sean McDermott gave a really good insight on a specific play. And I think you remember the play was third quarter, and Maye gets out the pocket. So they're going left to right on TV. He gets out of the pocket and he just throws a bullet to Stephon Diggs at like the 10-yard line. But what a great play it was. He's close to the sidelines, right? And one thing that was happening was he was getting flushed out to his right a lot, and he's making plays. And like Josh Allen, what do teams do? Try to get him the other way. He's so good at going that way. So even Eric Wood said at a point during the game, maybe you might want to do something to get him going left. And I agree with that. But I thought Sean gave a really good answer on this. And this is some insight into how the game is played. He said they had pressure on that particular play. They had pressure coming from the offensive left, defensive right. So that intentionally flushes him. They had a guy scheduled for contain there, but that guy didn't keep contain. So you're literally intentionally flushing him to the contain guy. That's the strategy. So when he said that, I went back and looked. Landon Jackson was the defensive end on that play, but he dropped in coverage. So I don't know if he didn't get the memo on what he was supposed to do, or if maybe Terrell Bernard was supposed to come up and have contain. I'm not really sure, but no one's home. Drake Maye gets out of the pocket. There's Stephon Diggs down the field. But when people want to criticize the scheme, the coaching, that's fine. But here's a coach telling you, we had something in on that play to literally get him to that guy so we can make a tackle, and the guy didn't have contain.
Yeah, it seems like when it comes to rush and coverage, they've been on different pages for a majority of the year. And I want to go back to a point you made a couple minutes ago about the Bills not making plays on the ball, because this is something I'm going to keep talking about each and every week until things start turning around. And hopefully it comes in bunches like it typically does. So the Bills, you hear that havoc stat thrown out a bunch when it comes to tackles for losses, sacks, batted passes, pass breakups. Well, the Bills right now literally only have 2 pass breakups, not interceptions, but 2 pass breakups this year. That's the worst in the league. They are struggling in the secondary at making plays at the catch point, and including Christian Benford. There were some times where he had tight coverage on Stephon Diggs, and Diggs was really physical with him. Diggs was a wily veteran yesterday. There were so many good things that he did against the Bills when it comes to obviously his attitude. He's always that fiery player, but his suddenness in his routes, they were back. His quickness after the catch, we didn't see much run after the catch when he was in Buffalo. He was very QB friendly, extending plays when the plays weren't there initially, extending plays and getting QB friendly for his quarterback. But there was one play I was just talking about where Benford had him on the near sideline, had him blanketed, but Diggs gets into the body of Benford, grabs inside, pulls him down, and then works back to the ball and works the boundary along the sideline to separate. And Benford's like, hey, pull my jersey. Diggs was really good. He was on top of his game. He said after the game, it was a personal game. I mean, players, they make these type of things up just to drive them, I'm sure. But 2 pass breakups this year for this defense, that's not good enough across the secondary. The Bills need to start doing some things to get their defenders, corners, nickels, safeties in and around the ball at the catch point and start making plays, because that's kind of been the MO of this team. Interceptions, turnovers, and plays on the ball at the catch point the last few years.
Yeah, no doubt. And, going into the season, the safeties were a big concern. I didn't have a problem with the safeties last night. They actually kept everything in front of them. They have no explosive plays down the field. Now, that's not what the Patriots do. Their game is throw to tight ends, throw to running backs, and then you mix in Stephon Diggs like you did. We all kind of thought, hey, what do they have here at number 2 corner? And I think that's a prevailing thought coming in now. And right now they're kind of stressed because of the numbers there, because of the injuries. And obviously Dorian Strong, his neck injury, which is scary to think about. Max Harrison's still not back. So we'll see what happens. One more week here, and then you have the bye week. But next week's going to be another challenge here, Eric, because, boy, those weapons that they have on the Atlanta Falcons side of the field on their offense, with Bijan Robinson in the run and pass game, with Drake Maye, with Kyle Pitts, they're going to be really tough to deal with. And the Bills have to be better when it comes to sticking with receivers a little bit earlier in the down. It's not late in the down. They're not getting hurt by explosives. They're getting hurt early in the down in those, 10-yard range, 7-yard range area type passes.
And just for reference, I said 2 pass breakups in the regular season so far this year through 5 games. Just for reference, last year in 2024, they had 31 in the regular season. 31 in the regular season, 43 the year before, 43 the year before, 46 in 2021, and 44 in 2020. So again, I think, yes, the Bills went out and they drafted Harrison, and they brought on Dorian Strong. And obviously Trey White's out there, and Trey struggled. He struggled. And obviously he wasn't the only one to struggle, but he struggled with some physicality. Mac Hollins made him look silly on the touchdown that they pitched it out to the running back and scored easily. Mac Hollins made it look like he was running around and just popped Trey White and pancaked him. Trey's been struggling. You're not seeing the sticky feet that you're used to seeing when he's in off coverage and he reads it and he puts his foot in the ground and just goes. When he's putting his foot in his ground now from that off position, you're seeing him kind of fumble his feet and trip and fall. It's been tough to watch because I thought coming into the season, I thought he would be not back to 100%, but close enough to have that higher floor. But with the penalties and how often he's being targeted, he's just not held up as good as I thought he would.
Right. I think what I'm seeing from him is maybe playing it a little safe, not wanting to get beat deep. You know what I mean? And that's why you're seeing a cushion there. He'd rather just kind of come up, make the play, live to fight another day. And I think, as you get through the season here and critical plays need to be made, that's fine and good if you're not going to get beat, deep for touchdowns and things like that. But you need a little more twitchiness. You need a guy that's going to attack the ball. Remember when Russell Douglas came at the trade deadline a couple years ago, and he was making plays in the ball.
That's
and
what they need.
Wow, we haven't seen something like this, right?
It
was just something that was different. And I think that's what you're hoping for from someone on the Buffalo Bills defense, which hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, in this game against the Patriots, 4 targets against Trey White, 4 receptions, 72 yards. That's courtesy of Pro Football Focus on the season. 15 targets against Trey White, 12 receptions, 119 yards, 32 being the longest and 1 touchdown. So I want to see him, they need him. I mean, they need him with the injuries they have right now. I don't think Harrison's going to, even if he was healthy today, I don't think they're just going to throw him in the lineup. No. It's going to be a slow transition for him. Dorian Strong, do we even know what's up with him yet?
So he's got a neck injury. And what concerns me, Eric, is the rapid way in which it went from there was nothing. He was a full participant. Next day, doesn't practice the neck injury. Next day, Sean McDermott tells me on his weekly radio interview, he says, well, we're still evaluating and looking at it. And then he gets put on IR right away. That's a neck injury. Yeah. That's scary. Here's the encouraging news, though. He was at the game yesterday walking on the sidelines, just dressed, in street clothes with his team. It wasn't like he wasn't there or anything you could see outwardly that was going on. But, it's a neck injury, so it's scary. The Bills might have lost Matt Milano again. We'll see today. He had a pec injury. He left this game, did not play the second half, essentially after a couple plays in the second half, I think it was. But another pec injury re-aggravated that pec injury, and that could be something, again, that keeps him out a while, maybe longer term. Who knows? But they do have the bye week in a couple of weeks. But, that's another loss. And I understand that, like, Matt Milano's not making these splash plays and putting his name all over the stat sheet, but I at least want to point out that the Patriots had 6 points in the first half. They had 17 points in the second half. Yeah. Right? And Matt Milano's a part of that. I'm not saying it's all on him. Shaq Thompson did a really good job, by the way. I mean, Shaq Thompson's making plays, but Matt Milano's an important part of this team. And when he's not on the field, it does show sometimes.
Matt Milano was huge. I'm going to say it. Matt Milano was huge in the first half of that game because it allowed them to do some things, whether it be man coverage, whether it was the odd mirror stuff with the spy. It allowed Bernard to not have to play some of those roles that he's not used to, and he doesn't have the athleticism of, say, a Matt Milano or even a Shaq Thompson. He's more of a shoulders up guy, and it allowed the Bills to do some things when you're playing against a team that likes to throw to their tight ends. And so I think he was pretty big, especially early, even against the run. Him and Rousseau were awesome. If we talk about Shaq Thompson, the one play that really stood out to me, and I didn't realize that Shaq Thompson had this much juice left, is where the Bills were starting to heat up Drake Maye. They're sending blitzes at him. And so the Patriots were like, all right, I'm just going to start throwing screens. I'm going to swing it to wide receivers, swing it to running backs. They started doing that. So they blitzed Bernard off the offense's left side, and Shaq Thompson was his replacement. Well, they swung it all the way out to the boundary, and Shaq Thompson had to run that guy down, and he did. So seeing that athleticism, speed still there for Shaq, obviously an experienced player, that maybe lessens the blow for talking no Matt Milano, Dorian Williams. We'll see where those two shake out. But Shaq Thompson, I thought, played really well. But another guy I just mentioned who had an arrow up for me, Greg Rousseau, really answered the call in this game. What were your thoughts on his play against the Patriots?
Yeah, he finally had a game where I think he was aiming to have. Yeah. I thought both Greg Rousseau and A.J. Epinesa were good in this game. A.J. Epinesa made some plays, but Greg Rousseau was this was his best game of the season, no doubt. And they needed that from him. So it was nice to see from Greg Rousseau. We had Scott, who in the chat has been telling and been saying here in the chat a couple of times about how the Patriots decided to chip and double the Bills' defensive end. They went max protected. The Patriots did. They had those split backs. They used 2 backs, and they were protecting and going against the defensive ends. And he's making a point that they didn't respect the Bills' defensive tackles. I don't know. I mean, I think it's more about they thought that the receivers could get open early by doing that. If you're only think about it this way, if you're keeping both running backs in to protect, you're only sending 3 in the route.
Yeah.
If you're only sending 3 in the route, you're telling the other team, we can beat you with 3 in the route. I don't think it was about their defensive tackles. I think it was about their wide receivers or a tight end getting open. That's what I think it was more about. I mean, Daquan Jones beat his man cleanly at the end of the game and could not get Drake Maye down. Now, obviously not every play. I would also point out, Scott, they were using 2 practice squad defensive tackles during this game a little bit. Right? I mean, Fedarian Mathis
and more pluggers than anything. They're not pass rushers.
That's exactly right. The guys they were using, Scott, were not guys. They're not Ed Olivers. They're not penetrators, right? Even Daquan Jones. The guys they're using, talking about Zion Logue and Fedarian Mathis. Their game is basically run contain. The Bills did a nice job against the run. These are not guys. You don't have to worry about them necessarily rushing the passer from the interior, I guess.
100%. That matters. That absolutely matters. And you talk about the chips by running backs and tight ends. Also, the Patriots loved running play action, and that will slow down a pass rush as well, because now the Bills defensive line, they're getting their hands on the offensive line, and they're like, okay, is it run to pass? They have to process that, then transition to a rusher. That slows down the pass rush and their pass rush plan, on top of having Mathis in there and Logue. And so I do think that definitely hurt them. But Rousseau, I thought, stood out. 3 total pressures in this game. He had several tackles as well. I mean, 5 tackles, 5 stops. I thought he really showed out. And I still don't think he's 100%, because there were a couple plays afterwards. He was kind of like bending his knee a little bit, because supposedly it's like a bone bruise or something like that. And he's kind of bending his knee and like working it out. I still don't think he's 100%, but this player, that was a good game for him to put on tape, because they're leaning on him. We talked about other guys that the Bills are leaning on, and Rousseau is definitely one of those guys that they've told us, hey, we need more from you. And I thought he actually showed out in this game. So anyone else, arrow up, arrow down, that you want to discuss before we get out of here?
Defensive ends, I talked about Rousseau. I talked about Vanessa. I didn't think it was a great game for Joey Bosa. He didn't really show up in the stat sheet. There's were times where, again, I think these are kind of games where you're getting the quarterback out in space, out in pocket. He's moving around a little bit. That's where Joey Bosa, I think, needs to chase him down. He needs to be there for contain. He needs to help you out there. I didn't see enough from him in that regard. So that was something that, I noticed a little bit on the field. Not necessarily from this game, arrow up, arrow down, but I am much more arrow up and bullish on Michael Hoyt being a part of this defense in a couple of weeks. And I'm not telling you he's the end all fix all, folks. I'm not saying that. But I've seen some people say, and it could very well be right, oh my God, everybody's making a big deal about getting Hoyt back. I do think with Ed Oliver and Michael Hoyt, I do think it will make a difference. I do think they are going to be really integral parts. Now, again, it doesn't mean they become the 85 Bears. That's not what I'm saying. But here's why. What we saw in preseason, Eric and I, we've talked about this, and I think you'd agree. The way that they would employ Michael Hoyt to move him around and to allow other people to do different things, that's what I think is going to allow this defense to be better, because now you can kind of create more matchups, if you will, on the defensive side that you want to create. And what we saw in preseason from Michael Hoyt, I mean, I would say he was the best defensive player for the Buffalo Bills during preseason. That's what I would say.
He was.
That's right.
And not just against the pass, as a run defender too. He had some really splash plays. We're talking some of those run stunts, blowing things up in the backfield. I'm with you. Sal, I'm with you. I think he's going to make a big difference. Much like we talked about Milano and how he opens up some things in coverage. I think Michael Hoyt, much like you're seeing Javon Solomon yesterday in the last few weeks, we talked about how they're employing him in a 2-point stance at a D tackle position. That's going to be Michael Hoyt. The twists and stunts that the Bills are running a lot more now, they're going to have Hoyt doing that. And he is very good at that. And it's going to open up things for others, whether it's on the stunts or games, or maybe one of the DNs becomes a contain guy and they're running a 2 or 3 man stunt with Hoyt and others, and they flush them right to that contain player, like you talked about earlier in the podcast. And so I'm excited to see what they do with him. He offers them some creativity to their defensive structure, to their defensive front, and their pass rush.
Yeah, Todd. So no thoughts. I don't know. Maybe we didn't see your tweet, but or your comment. Yeah. I mean, I think, Josh could have probably thrown the ball to Samuel. We talked about this earlier. He bailed out of the pocket a little too soon. I don't think it's any secret at all. Josh also made a mistake on the throw that Marcus Jones intercepted. He also made a mistake on not handing the ball off to Ty Johnson. So yeah, he made some mistakes. And if he would have stayed in the pocket a little bit longer, he probably sees Curtis Samuel and he throws a touchdown, but he didn't. He went to the right. He got out of the pocket a little bit. Now, I do wonder, Eric, he did get a little banged up in that series a little before that. I wonder if, he was in the pocket and just kind of got a little bit happy because he wanted to make sure he didn't get taken down again and, didn't stay in there a little bit too long enough. So that could have happened for sure. I want to give an arrow up to the coverage units. They were facing a very good return game in Marcus Jones and what the Patriots bring, and Antonio Gibson, both punt and kick return. They did an excellent job. Very nice job by the coverage units in this game by the Buffalo Bills. So I thought that was really an area where they had to be good, and they were good.
Oh, great point. All right, Sal, before we get you out of here, what's the schedule like this week? What press conferences do we have coming up, and what content you dropping soon?
Yeah, so a little different this week because the Bills are playing on Monday Night Football. So everything kind of gets pushed back. Football coaches always work backwards. So, when you're playing on Monday, Sunday is really a Saturday. Saturday is really a Friday. So you're gonna have press conferences today. Sean McDermott's going to speak at 4 p.m. 2 hours from now. We'll get an injury update on Matt Milano and others, see where that stands. Team will be off tomorrow. They'll be back to work Wednesday. Now, I will say it will look like a normal Sunday through the first part of the week. So they'll practice Wednesday and Thursday. And then Saturday will be another bit of a practice. It'll be like a Friday, and then fly to Atlanta on Sunday for the game on Monday Night Football. And then, of course, we'll be all over it. WGR550.com. I'll be at Sal Sports. You can follow along what's going on. We'll keep you updated. And the Bills obviously have, Max Harrison, Tyler Bass, Tylan Grable, who all are still eligible to come off IR or at least start practicing. And that'll be another storyline this week. But 1 week and then the bye. So I wouldn't be surprised if we're still waiting another week or so for all that to start happening.
Awesome stuff. Hey, guys, I want to take a second to thank everyone joining us live here on YouTube, and obviously later if you watch us later on tonight or tomorrow. But also, this podcast is available on all podcast platforms, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. Wherever you listen to podcasts, you can download this and subscribe to our show, Turf the Tape. This show has been brought to you by Thin Man Brewery. We appreciate them joining us as a sponsor this year, and we're going to have some cool things lined up here in the next couple months when it comes to doing some live podcasts, which something I know you do a ton of, man. I haven't gotten to do one yet. I'm excited to get there and do a live podcast with you and all the fans.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be really fun. So we're going to bring it to the people so you can join us and hang out with us. And we're going to have some fun with everybody. So I can't wait for that to happen. It's a long season, folks. I mean, It sucks to talk about a loss. I mean, the Bills were officially, Eric, the last undefeated team in the NFL this year because the Eagles lost in the afternoon and the Bills didn't play until night. And folks, they're going to lose again at some point this year, most likely, right? It'd be kind of weird if they went 16-1, and that'd be remarkable, but they're going to lose again. So these things happen. They do lose. They didn't play their best football game, and now you move on and you try to figure it out and you get ready for the Atlanta Falcons on Monday night.
Can't wait. This has been Turf the Tape. I am your host, Eric Turner. That's Sal Capaccio. We'll see you next week.